My brothers and sisters, welcome to Center of Light. Everyone should want to become. I gotta unmute some stuff. Welcome to Center of Light. Everyone should want to become that. What? A crystal ball? No, crystal clear. Hello, COVID-19. How you like me now? Because of such, or the lack of, we find ourselves in a very tight clutch. Not too fun, is it? Heaven on earth happens when we become clear. There is no other path. I'm sure my guest will reaffirm that in his beautiful way. Tonight, my guest is Steve Burgess, and we're going to be speaking about the power. I've never interviewed a guest in hypnosis. I've had it done to me a few times, but tonight we're speaking about his book, The Power of Past Life Regression. Dear Lord, the questions I can ask. This is going to be crazy. Welcome to Center of Light, Center of Divine Unfoldment and Reinforcement. Is anybody, I'm sure, but I'm asking this question. It's rhetorical. You can respond. Is any of you experiencing heightened intuition, psychic abilities? Are you? Of course you are. You know why? Because it's happening to all of us. The day before the Beirut, Lebanon bombing or explosion, Swamiji Visvayogi, those who know about me, how I follow this God-realized man from India, I guess you can call him a friend, if you will. I get to hang out with him. How's that? Physically. He will not see it as a friendship at all. He sent me a message telepathically, and I know it was him. And he said, tomorrow there's going to be a bomb's going to go off. He didn't say explosion. He said bomb. Bomb means intention. Someone is intentionally creating a bomb. Sadly, my heart, my love, my support goes out to the beautiful people, innocent people, and such nonsense that we see everywhere in the world. But you cannot not assume responsibility. It's the only way the world's going to change. It's the only way your own life is going to change. Just because you walk into a bar, let's say, Friday night, you've been in a cubicle, well, when you could be in a cubicle all week, and it's time to let go and you hang out with your friends in a bar, and you're just sitting there minding your own affairs, and someone walks up to you and just slaps you across the face. I understand self-defense in the moment. I get it. In hindsight, what do? Do you keep calling this person a son of a bitch? Or do you say, do I need to take responsibility 100%? So I assure that this type of thing will never happen to me again. Maybe the message is, I don't need to hang out in such low vibrational places. Right? Puts a whole new reality spin on it. It lets you have the opportunity to choose in a very powerful way. So welcome to Center of Light Radio. I do want to give a shout out before I get my guests on today. Homecoming, Crossing the Bridge to the Soul. My new release as of last Saturday. It's doing very well on the charts. It's number 6 as of now. In the UK, push, 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 push. It is truly giving birth to a baby. Are you giving birth to your baby? What is your baby would become the question. What are you trying to give new life to? What seeds are you planting within yourself and watering them and having them germinate? Do you see the results of that? Or are you using that very intuition I spoke about just a bit ago as your GPS, your God positioning system? Are you doing that? If you are, congrats. Keep doing it. Water that plant. That plant is you. Become a full-fledged human being. The tree of life, if you will. Oh, by the way, you can order this new release of mine. I'm still learning on the screen behind me, but I like the glow around me. Center of Light, I have glow around me. So if I stay within the confines of my body, it doesn't look so cray-cray. You can order this book now, which is, I'm going to post my guest I'm bringing on shortly, as well as a link to order Homecoming, Crossing the Bridge to the Soul. There is my guest, heard that guest website. Please go stomp all over his page and make a huge stink. Let him know that he is love beyond measure. Let me tell you about my guest on Center of Light Radio today, Steve Burgess. He said it's a soft G, not a hard G, it's a soft G. Steve Burgess. I was just introduced to Steve Burgess by Gavin Lee Davies, who everyone absolutely loves beyond measure. The Power of Past Life Regression is the book we're going to be speaking about, and a whole bunch of wonderful, powerful, off the chart stuff, I get the feeling. Steve Burgess is one of the world's leading, let me say that again. Steve Burgess is one of the world's leading hypnotherapists and past life regression specialists. He has completed many thousands of past, oh my God, we're going to be here for hours. He has completed many thousands of past life regression sessions, helping his clients with a wide range of issues, including phobias and anxieties, depression, lack of confidence, weight issues, addictions, physical illness, sexual problems, and performance anxiety. Hello. Most of his work involves using hypnosis to regress people back to the emotional root cause of their problems, and often back into previous lifetimes. Wow, I love it. His YouTube channel, Hypno for All, let me sound that out for you. Hypno, HYPNO, number 4, ALL, all one word. Hypno for All features free hypnotherapy recordings. He is in demand as a hypnotherapy trainer, and his work has been featured on TV, local and national radio, and many publications. Everyone, please welcome my brand new friend to Center of Light Radio, Mr. Steve Burgess. Soft G. Hello, brother.
Hello, Keith. Thank you so much for having me. Great to be with you. And tell me, as we're going through the interview, because I'm a hypnotherapist, I tend to be very softly spoken. If I go too quiet or if I go into hypno mode, tell me, speak up, Burgess, speak up. Not a problem.
You know, I was going to save this question for the moment when I felt it. I'm going to ask you right off the bat. So you've done these thousands of interview sessions. Let's say John or Jill Doe is laying on your table or couch while you got your pipe and you're going through the. Let me play with you a little bit. I never had the opportunity to hang out and interview a monkey mind specialist. And in all these sessions you have done, let's say John or Jill Doe is a smoker, or John or Jill Doe is a drinker, or John or Jill Doe has certain addictions or certain sexual problems, or whatever the situation may be. Has it come across your couch when you find people with the same issues in this life, that when you regress them back, there's an amazing connection to how John and or Jill Doe are doing the same things that other people are doing that have these issues? Is this a reoccurring theme, like when someone from a past life did this certain thing, almost to the point, literally, this certain thing or had this thing happen to them, that they end up being a smoker or a drinker or a sexual predator or a sexual this or that or an addiction person? Would that be somewhat true?
It's true and it's not true. It's a great question, Keith, a really clever question. So what we find is that all of the issues that we have in this life, all of the issues we have in this life connect back into traumas in previous lifetimes. So let me answer you in a roundabout way, and I will answer your question. So the first thing is that the regression model is that all of our problems, whatever the problem is, depression, anxiety, phobias, lack of confidence, sexual problems, physical illness, etc. All of these problems are caused by traumas in the past, and that's in this lifetime, in past lives, and in our ancestors' lives. So I do a lot of regression back, not just into past lives, I do this life and ancestors' lives. Quite often, the trauma is seemingly unrelated to the problem in this lifetime. It is just a trauma that has got locked into the person, and for some strange reason, it comes out in depression or an anxiety in this lifetime. However, there are occasions when the problem in this life is almost like a pattern, you could say, from a past lifetime. And that pattern is something that sometimes has been with a person over many different lifetimes, not just over one life. So I do a lot of regression with people into several past lifetimes. So often we're unlocking a pattern, and that pattern might be an anger issue in this lifetime, reflects an anger issue in a past life where they've been very angry, where they've been very angry, and the anger has just remained with them from a past life into this life. Or it may be fear. So let me give you an example. I had a client who came with massive anxiety, but she also had claustrophobia, which is the fear of being of small spaces. And she also had a desperate need to yawn all the time. So, and all the time she was making this, and she was a teacher, so you can imagine how embarrassing it was to be in front of a group of students, and she was trying to catch her breath all the time. And what we found in several of the past lives, um, there were incidents. For example, in one past life, she was buried alive, and so therefore, of course, she couldn't get her breath. She was buried alive, so she was desperate to breathe. She couldn't breathe. So in this life, there's a part of her that feels, I need to breathe or I will die. That's the subconscious is saying that because of the past life trauma. She also experienced in the Second World War, in the Blitz in London, when the bombs were dropping, being bombed, her house was bombed with her in it, and she couldn't get out, and the house was burning around her. And of course, she couldn't get any clear, fresh air because there was burning smoke everywhere. So she couldn't breathe, and she subsequently died. So sometimes there is a clear connection from the problem in this life back into the past life, sometimes. But generally, it's just a general trauma release that gets the problem better in this lifetime. Hopefully that's answered your question.
Perfectly. Let me ask you this, sir. Being a metaphysician or a spiritual person, not that you aren't, I'm just asking the question because honestly, I really don't know you, but I kind of feel I know you. I know exactly the arena that you're speaking about. In all of your experience, do you see, have you seen, feel, intuit, experience that this past life we're talking about, it's not past at all. In fact, it's still present because obviously someone is still having the experience. So would you say in these multiple, we call them past lives, that there's simply one moment, this myriad of soul trying to balance itself, refine itself, figure itself out, that there happen? We call them past lives because of the monkey mind that sees things from point A to point B. Would that be true as your experience, that you just reaching into a well of where someone is having a collective phenomena take place?
Yes, this idea of, you could say, parallel lives, parallel worlds, parallel universes, almost as if everything is happening at the same time now. And so that is a possibility, and it's a concept which, I'll be honest, I find quite mind-blowing. And to be quite honest, when I'm working with clients, I think if I went into that too deeply, there's a possibility I may lose the clients, because most people who come to me, they live life in a linear way. They think time is linear. I don't think time is linear at all. I think it's all happening very much at the same time, and we're actually, as you say, going into a well, dragging something out which is just there. But we call it a past life because it's simple for the client's conscious mind to understand. And I think that my training, my mentor, one of my mentors who trained me, he said, with your clients, don't give them an explanation, give them an experience. So if I go too deeply into explaining, then the conscious mind kicks in, and I think that can get in the way.
And they probably
So
don't want that in the first place. They probably just want you
no,
to go there and do what you got to do.
they
Yeah.
just want to get better. They sit in front of me and they say, I've got depression, I've got a phobia, it's ruining my life. I need to get my life back.
And I love your answer, sir, because I think well, I can't say I think you're correct. You're correct because any other information just distracts them from the purpose of as to why they're there. It's giving them something else to think about when they don't need to be processing something, at least
Yeah,
in that regard, information. They need to process feeling or clarity.
yes, yes. Having said that, I have had some clients who are, we could say, more awake, more spiritually aware. And certainly with some of those clients, we find that the subconscious mind, which when we talk simply to the subconscious, we talk about this life, past lives, ancestors' lives. But I've certainly had more aware clients who appear to be experiencing trauma in a parallel universe. which is affecting them now. And the client is able to understand that concept. And so we do the same process. It's a regression, but it's regression into a trauma which is occurring to them now in a parallel world in some way.
When you said someone in your field speaks to the subconsciously, simply, do you mean that you actually approach the subconscious very childlike?
Well,
It receives better that way? Question?
yeah, the subconscious is a strange amorphous entity, you could say. So, I mean, the Freudian um, concept of the mind is that the mind is like an iceberg. So the tip of the iceberg above the waves is the conscious thinking mind. But the bulk of the iceberg, the 99.9% of the iceberg, is beneath the waves, and that's the subconscious. And that's the Freudian concept. However, and so in many respects, we treat the subconscious like a 9-year-old child. We talk to it simply. It seems to work better the simpler you talk. However, on the other hand,
However,
my experience is that the subconscious either is our higher self or is intimately connected to the higher self. And what this means is that our subconscious has an awesome wisdom. It has an extraordinary wisdom. It knows everything there is to know about the client. And when we tap into that wisdom by allowing the subconscious to do the work, not dictating to it as many hypnotherapists do, but allowing the wisdom of the subconscious to do the work, we get these incredible healings. So my work is very permissive. We ask the subconscious whereabouts the cause of the problem is. You know, the client comes in with panic attacks. So you don't catch panic attacks by sitting next to somebody on the bus who's got anxiety. It's always caused by stuff that's going on in the subconscious. So we simply ask the subconscious, whereabouts do we need to work? It tells me where to work. We follow it through and it does the work for us. So it's quite extraordinary at times.
so you're saying, I'm assuming that you're saying that the subconscious doesn't want you to go in there and start poking around. If you simply just sit back, it'll tell you what is utmost important to its host.
If you ask the right questions.
If you ask the right questions.
And you've got to do it in the right way. So let me explain a typical therapy session, perhaps, Keith. And this is what happens in most sessions. So the client comes with a problem. We talk about the problem, the issue. How long have you had it for? How does it affect you? Then I ask questions about the client's past in this lifetime. What was your childhood like? Was it happy or unhappy? Because if the client has got an unhappy childhood, then there's a chance that there's some trauma there that we need to release. I don't at that stage talk about past lives, but once I've taken the client into trance, once the client is in hypnosis, and remember, hypnosis is nothing strange or weird. We're all in trance most of the day. Hypnosis in a formal hypnotherapy setting is a relaxed state. So most people, when we're in trance in therapy, are relaxing. So they're not asleep, they're not in a coma, they know everything that's going on. What I then do is I ask the subconscious to come through into one of the client's hands by making maybe a finger or a thumb on the hand or the whole hand become very light. And this happens all by itself. My client is usually laying there with her eyes closed thinking, what is going on here? I'm relaxing now, but then my finger is moving up in the air. This is weird. And then I use that finger movement as a yes, no. I ask the subconscious to use the finger to say yes by raising it, to say no by keeping it still. Then all I do is I ask the wisdom of the subconscious yes, no questions. Is there anything in this lifetime causing the phobia? We may get a yes. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. That's
Let me ask
brilliant.
that
That's a
question
brilliant.
again. I had my
That's
mic
sweet.
muted. For those who, my apologies. I have so much technology. I'm learning new software every day. The question I asked Mr. Steve Burgess is, what is anxiety? And I gave it my attempt, which is, as a musician, that when the sound is too loud or someone does not know what they're doing with the sound equipment, the microphone sends signal through the speaker into the microphone into the speaker, and it creates this loop. And that's why we hear that horrible noise called feedback. So I asked about anxiety. Would it be true on the flip that someone who lives in anxiety is not only living in fear, that they are actually afraid of being afraid? And so it creates that generation process, which creates a biofeedback. Would that be true, sir?
Yeah, very much so. And what happens then is a person has a double whammy. So there is the anxiety or the fear, and actually fear and anxiety are two separate emotions. So the fear or the anxiety is in the subconscious and is being played over and over by the subconscious anyway. But as well as that, then because the person starts to fear the fear, they create more fear. So we have a double whammy or a double anxiety. So it's a very good explanation, actually. That a very good definition, Keith, of anxiety and fear and what happens in the body and in the mind.
I'm sure you have no doubt that you experienced and seen, and it's probably just, in fact, I would think it has to be true, just freaking flat out, that when someone has ongoing anxiety, of course, what is anxiety? It's fear, that the heart gets the feelings of being suffocated. Notice for anyone, when you have anxiety, it feels like you're having a heart attack because the love in you is being choked. Would that be true for you, sir? I mean, is that just so commonplace for you? It's nonsense. It's not even think about anymore. You know that someone is truly not allowing themselves to live in some sort of state of joy anywhere in their life.
If the anxiety or the fear is very deep, that is definitely the case. And with any problem, there are degrees of the problem. Excuse me. It's 1 o'clock in the morning here, so my voice is a bit tired. So there are degrees of a problem from light anxiety, medium anxiety, severe deep anxiety.
It ain't
Now,
fun.
somebody it's horrible.
It's not
I mean,
fun.
it's so difficult being a human being at times when we've got all this backpack of emotional stuff that we're carrying with us. Or in fact, let me explain my definition or my metaphor is that we all have an emotional pressure cooker inside us. What happens is when we're born, that pressure cooker has already got a lot of pressure in it because of the stuff we inherit from our ancestors and our past lives. And then traumas in this life go on top of that. And we keep putting the lid on the top of the pressure cooker, and the pressure builds and builds and builds. And we spend all of our time reacting to the pressure subconsciously. The regression process is about taking the lid off the pressure cooker, letting some pressure out, putting the top back on again, and then there's some space in that pressure cooker, and that space is healing and well-being and freedom, because therapy sets you free. And the more we release that pressure, the more healed, the more free a person is. So what anxiety, etc., does, it stops us from living our lives freely and joyfully. And the more severe the problem, the harder it is to feel love, to feel anything other than the anxiety. And for many people, unfortunately, all they can do is feel this emotional stuff day after day at such a level that they just cannot live freely.
When I was a young man, 22.
Okay. About 10 years ago, Keith, huh?
That was last week.
Oh,
I was dating this girl, and one day while she was at school, I'm in the bedroom changing some music. Took a record album off, and I just moved the arm over, and boy, and I felt this thing in my back. Now, keep in mind, I played a heavy guitar for many years at this early age, Gibson Les Paul, which is heavy as a house. Marched in the school band carrying timbales. It's this big old rack for this little guy. And I'm 5'4.5" now, so imagine when I was just small. So I felt this thing in my back, and it was a nerve that was pinched. And I was like, then I started hyper-focusing and hyper-fixing on this feeling. Called my father, went to the hospital, nothing wrong with you. So this went on for years. I would wake up the girlfriend that I lived with every other night, give or take a night. Uh-oh, lost my guess. There he is. So I would wake up in the middle of the night, every other night or so, randomly, living with this girl in the middle of the night saying, take me to the hospital. I'm dying of a heart attack. Ain't nothing wrong with you. And so I would always get there and there's nothing wrong with you. And then after a couple of months of this, Jennifer says, take your damn self. I'm tired. So I would go, and come to find out, a chiropractor saw my dad recommended $25, changed my life. I would have married that man if he was single. But I had anxiety so bad, Steve. I'm on the way to a music gig and I start hyper focusing on this. What if I literally fell in the floorboard of the truck and my body simulated a heart attack, only to get to the hospital to say, nothing's wrong with you. The question I wanted to ask you, sir, could you share with us an experience that you did a regression on someone, and it just so happened to be past life or other life, that when you got back, however many healing sessions it took, the changes that you seen occur in your client?
Oh, I can give you dozens and dozens and dozens. Gosh, I mean, that's what the book is about. It's all about the client sessions where the past life therapy has healed their problem. From a client who came, she was she'd been an alcoholic for 16 years, a functioning alcoholic. And she was an extraordinary case because she was basically able to work every day. But as soon as she got home from work on an evening, she started drinking. And every night she was drinking probably a full bottle of brandy every single night. She was absolutely drunk by 9 o'clock in the evening. She was overweight. She was ill a lot. She had bad asthma. The skin was terrible. And she was deeply unhappy. And I guided her into trance. The subconscious took her into a past lifetime. She cried and cried and cried, which is what happens a lot in regression. She came out of trance at the end of that session. We didn't actually see what happened in that past life. She just released the emotions. And she came back to me a week later to say she hadn't touched a drop of alcohol at all. And that had not happened for 16 years. This is a lady who I saw in, I think, 1995. She is still completely dry. I see her occasionally. And in one session, that alcohol problem was completely cured. I had a client in Oslo just today who I work online with most of my clients now. And I saw her 6 weeks ago with her depression. One session, she went into a past life. And I spoke to her today. The depression has been completely cured. It's gone. It's just completely gone. She's got her life back. So I wish it worked as fast as that every time, because, I mean, people think I'm Jesus when that happens.
Can you give me an average? I know everybody's a snowflake and everybody has a fingerprint and everybody's individual and it's just all varies. But is there just, a couple of sessions, definitely by 5, or it's often, I mean, can you give me some figures here, just because I'm learning? We talk spirituality all day long, but when it comes to your field, sir, I'm sitting here absorbing like a sponge.
I would say 5 to 10 sessions is average for most people.
And if people want your services, sir, they can find you on your website, which I just posted, everyone. Please walk all over Steve's page and make a big noise. Let them know you're present.
Yeah, just send me a message. And I have clients all around the world, a lot in the States, Spain.
What are you trying to imply there? A lot in the States. I mean, where are we that messed up? I would agree with that, actually.
No. Well, let me tell you, just going back to your question, actually, Keith, because there's one great, and talking about the back problem as well. So many physical problems come from injuries in past lifetimes. So I had a lady who came to me, and this lady was a magistrate. So she's a very left brain. She's not into a lot of this spiritual stuff. But she had a severe back problem in the lower part of her right back. Excuse me. And she'd had this problem for some time, and she was getting overweight because she couldn't go to the gym. The pain was there all the time. She was depressed with pain. She was just in a bad way. She'd even had surgery on the back, and they couldn't find anything wrong with her. So she went to hospital. They put her under anesthetic. They opened her up, couldn't find anything wrong, stitched her back up again, sent her home with painkillers and said, there's nothing we can do. So she was obviously in a bad way, and she came to me wanting help for the pain. I took her into trance, and her subconscious indicated there were 4 past lives which were causing the back problem. And the first past life was the biggie. And in this past life, she regressed back into being a Nazi soldier in the Second World War. And she was a young, naive Nazi soldier. She was a rubbish soldier, but she was it was a man, of course. She was a man in the past life, a young man. And what happened is that this young man, because he was artistic, became part of the Nazi war machine that was going around Europe, stealing art treasures and shipping them back to Berlin. So he was basically looking at different places, trying to find these art treasures and shipping them back to Berlin. But then things started to go wrong, and he got sent to the Russian front. And it was 1942. Now, my client, bear in mind, she's laying there in the chair with her eyes closed, and she's just talking. She's just sharing the experience with me. And she said, we're in the snow. We're stuck in the snow. We're about 40 miles, 60 miles from Moscow. We're in a little town called Smolsk. And in fact, I looked this up later in the map, and there it was. It was 60 miles away from Moscow, this little town. She said, we can't move. The supplies are not getting through. It's the Russian winter. We can't get the benzene. The trucks are not moving. We're stuck in the snow, and there are snipers all over the place. Little skirmishes taking place with the Russians, and it's terrifying. And then that young man made the biggest mistake of his life, because he got told that in a village behind the lines, in other words, a small village that the Nazis had captured, in a church, there was an icon, and it was worth looking at. So this young man thought, okay, it's behind the lines. He just got a motorbike, and without an armed escort, he drove a couple of miles to this village. Now, this is exactly what happened. So be prepared for this, Keith, and you might have to knock the speakers down as I do this. I'll come back a bit.
Wow.
So,
wow, I love it.
She's laying in trance, and I'm saying, what's happening now? And she said, right, and she got her eyes closed. She said, I've arrived at the church. I've got off the motorbike, and I'm looking for the entrance to the church. And well, she jumped about 3 feet in the air. She screamed. She landed back in the chair. She was screaming and crying and choking and coughing. I hit the bloody ceiling, because I really wasn't expecting it. And I said,
I wasn't really expecting that either, just
no, exactly.
but I love it.
It was and it was 100 times bigger than that, Keith. I promise. It was a massive explosion. I said, what's happened? She said, I've been shot. I've been shot. I've been shot. And I'm dying in the snow. And it took her about 20 minutes to die. This sniper just shot her. And then she died, and she felt her body, felt her spirit leave the body, move into spirit, and she felt very peaceful.
Let me ask you this. I don't mean to interrupt, but the people you have regressed in the past, when they get to that point, do they often go to another experience or come back to the room, or do they actually go into detail about what they're now experiencing now that they've been disembodied?
Sometimes they go into quite considerable detail. Sometimes they just tend to go, I'm going off somewhere, and that's it. And then they drift off and feel peaceful. But there are occasions where people do give a lot of information about being on the other side, and halls of learning, and elders helping them and stuff like that. Although I do have a new theory about the concept of reincarnation now, because I'm really not sure whether we need to reincarnate, and this is something I'm looking at. But just going back to my client before we talk about that. So she laid in the chair. Guess where the bullet went? Right through the area of the back where the problem was. Now, we went back through that death about 3 or 4 more times. We have to sometimes do this to clear the energy completely. Each time when she got shot, she jumped and screamed a little bit less. The last time when the bullet went in, she just went, oh, and it was done. She died very quickly. As a result of that, and we cleared the other past lives in some other sessions, the back pain was completely cured. It was as if it had never existed before. She got her life back. She was able to get to the gym. She started to lose weight. She actually even became much more confident in herself. So confident that she actually left her husband. She realized her marriage wasn't right for her. And so it had a massive sort of
And
change
he
in my
paid for
life.
the session. Hearing you use this particular person's experience, my dad, this beautiful, loving, graceful human being, so selfless. He just struggled with lower back issues, right? And so he's the kind of guy get up at 6 o'clock in the morning back in the day, get on the road because he was a furniture guy, delivers furniture sales and all that. And I lived in South Louisiana, so there's 3 bayous, and he was just going. Leave at 7 in the morning, come home at 6 o'clock at night. Then he would go in the garage and build pirogues, which is sort of like a Cajun canoe. He was just always doing something to provide for his family. Now, because he was a furniture bill collector as well as delivering furniture and making sales, he had a wallet in his left hip. It was this thick with money, and so he went to an acupuncture guy in New Orleans, Louisiana. And as soon as my dad walks in, he says, "Can I see your wallet?" He says, "Man, I just been here 5 minutes and you want my wallet." He says, "Let me see your wallet." And he opens it up. So my dad had all this money, and he says, "All these years, this has been your problem. Carrying all this money. All you need is a credit card and a $20 bill." And it worked. It works for my dad amazingly. But many years later, it just bends him in half. I'm going to have him contact you. I would love to see, well, not for metaphysical and learning reasons. I would like to see my dad get better, and I have no doubt that he's an old world guy, old world paradigm kind of guy. So no telling where this comes from, and I'm gonna hook you up. I think he would.
Please do. Love to work with him. Love to work. So much of my work nowadays is working on physical problems, and when we're able to work at these deep levels, the problems get better. And I'm not trying to sound off about how wonderful I am. I'm not. I'm just doing my job. I've got a system that I've developed over 28 years as a therapist, and this system works. For example, and this is a big claim, and I'm not claiming for 1 minute that I can cure cancer. This is not what I'm saying. However, I had a client in Oslo last year who had lip cancer of the lip. The cause of that, the emotional causes, were 2 past lives in which she'd been raped in both of the past lives, and she was unable to talk about the rape. She was unable to tell anybody about the rapes in both of the past lives, excuse me. She was unable to talk about the rapes and tell people. She had to button it, basically. So, of course, there's all this blocked energy in the lip area, and that's where the cancer came out, symbolically. So we cleared both of those past lives. She also then changed her diet, changed her lifestyle, and had some kinesiology, which is a brilliant therapy system. She emailed me 5 months later to say, "I've been to the hospital. They cannot find a trace of cancer in my body." So, every illness has emotional causes.
Do many people with cancer come to you?
No, I'm sorry, they don't. The simple reason is because they are brainwashed by the medics that there is only this way to go. But actually,
in other words, take the lawnmower and cut the weed instead of going in there with the spade and pulling it out.
That's it. This is all about digging the roots out. That's exactly what this is about, Keith. Digging the roots out, then it doesn't grow back. So I had a client, migraines in my experience are usually caused, by deaths in past lifetimes where there's been blows to the head. And the head has got all this energy in it of pain, and it comes out in the form of migraines. I had a 12-year-old boy came to me with severe migraines, and his mom sat in and watched the session, and she, at the end of the session, she just sat there with her mouth wide open because there were 8 past lives causing the migraines. 8. And he was a fast worker. We cleared all 8 past lives in one session. One session, we cleared all past lives. So he went into I took him into trance. He went to the first past life where he was a man in the past life, and his wife was having an affair, and she came up behind him when he was in the garden with a spade. Bang! She hits him around the back of the head, dead. And he went straight into the next past life where he was an old man climbing up some steps, and the steps broke and he fell down and landed smacks on his head, dead. And he went into the next past life where he was in a fight in a bar and somebody was smashing his head and then kicking his head while he was laid on the floor, dead. And he went into the next past life where he was a young boy at school. And he stood up to the school bully and kicked the school bully, who then got hold of him and started to smack his head against a wall. And his mum as she's taken him to hospital, and then dies. He goes into the next past life where he was driving a car and a big lorry comes and smashes into the car and he hits his head on the steering wheel, dead. And it was just
so obviously these events, even though this was an example, but likewise, these events will keep occurring. Eventually, till the person gets the joke. Obviously, the little boy with the 8 lives didn't get the joke, so you got to repeat the punchline so you can go, I get it. So do you see that as a theme, that things keep recurring, that when you don't get the riddle someone told you in the punchline until they say it in such a way with different words? Sometimes.
So there are different ways of healing in regression. The primary way is to release the emotion. So we see a lot of crying, we see a lot of shaking in therapy sessions where the body releases and people cry or scream or whatever. But a secondary way in which people heal is they get an understanding that comes from the past life, a connection or a pattern that they can make sense of in this lifetime. For example, if they've always had a difficult relationship with the mother, then they go back into a past life and they'll say, oh, my mother killed me in that past life. Or I killed her. No wonder we've had problems with each other in this lifetime. And then that insight makes sense of the problem, and the problem gets better because the client can make sense of it, because there's an understanding. So those are the two main ways in which past life regression and regression therapy works.
Steve, let me walk on some strange territory with you, sir. Feel free to decline. I'm not trying to put you in a position, and I don't want anyone to lean into the idea that this is the way. I want to toy with an idea. Let me ask you a question, if you feel free to answer. Do you consider yourself a spiritual man?
Yes, I do.
Do you understand? Obviously, the principle of vibration makes one higher in awareness and all that. So that was to set up my question to you. Hypothetical. Someone gets COVID-19. Whatever that thing is, if it's an actual virus or whatever that thing actually is, and someone says, I want to go check this out. So they come to you. Is it possible that you can regress them into a past life experience to find out what they have been doing that is keeping their vibration from actually lifting? So therefore, preventative, as well as helping someone remove such a situation.
Gosh, that's a very profound question.
I have my moments.
That's mind-blowing. Okay. Every illness has emotional causes. So what that means is that many people who get COVID, if it exists, have got a reduced immune system. A reduced immune system is often caused by stress. If a person is carrying a lot of stress, then it will reduce the effectiveness of the immune system, so they're more open to illness. So one way to help somebody either not to get it or to overcome it is to release the stress that they're holding on to, so the immune system can come back to normal. Secondly, it could be, certainly if a person really gets COVID in a bad way, it could be that they have died of plague in a previous life. Could be.
I can understand that, because we had just talked about the idea that how things ironically repeat themselves, and so wow.
Yes, yeah. But let me just check out now. You've heard of Louise Hay?
Love her. I know all of her affirmations. I love it.
Fantastic. So her book, which is obviously You Can Heal Your Life. This is a shortened version, Heal Your Body. For Louise Hay.
Steve, that is actually the first spiritual book I read when I was on the conscious path. Changed my life.
Okay.
You Can Heal Your Life.
I first looked at it 27 years ago. And I was in my early stages of being a therapist. And I was a real clever dick in those days. I thought I knew it all. And I read the book and I thought, nah, what a load of rubbish. But I tell you what, Keith, the older I get, the more I've done 15,000 therapy sessions now. We're over 15,000 therapy sessions. This is my Bible. Okay, I think she's got it so right. What Louise Hay says about viral infections, and we'll assume that it's a viral infection. She says the emotional cause is a lack of joy flowing through life and bitterness in a person. So that basically means that somebody who has got that stuff going on inside them is potentially more likely to catch the virus. So what that person needs to, she says, I lovingly allow joy to flow freely in my life. I love me.
It almost sounds like unconscious self-sabotage that
No, it
creates
does.
the situation that one would contract a virus. Actually, the virus is only a manifestation of the virus that's already in the person's consciousness of how they view themselves in the world and so forth and so on. Would this be a true depiction of what could be the potential attraction for such anything in life, actually?
Hmm. Every illness has emotional causes, has emotional stuff that's inside the person. It comes out in certain ways. And so the virus, in a way, is no different. Why are some people not getting it? Why are other people getting it very badly? There's an emotional component which will not be looked at because there's this desperate need to jab everybody with toxins.
As perfect of a situation that things need to be healed, they need to be equally as perfect to get ill. All the components have to line up. Would that be true from your experience, sir?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So, it isn't a chance. I mean, Louise Hay says if you break your leg, you have caused that leg break. You have brought it on for some reason, which is a hell of a slap in the face to people when they
Right.
first hear that, if they can't accept it.
It's like in
But
the movie The Matrix. And don't worry about that lamp. What lamp? And he hits the lamp and the vase and it falls. And she says, I told you, don't worry about it. So there's a seed implanted in this cat that his body does. You can take a pendulum with a weight on it and think thoughts, and the pendulum begins to move. You know, uh, you get a little bit too worried about dropping something. You're gonna drop the something and you're fumbling. That's why when I don't like the word psychic, so I'm not gonna use it. When I do work with people, when they say, Keith, can you tell me what's coming down the pike for me? I don't play the game in the first place unless I feel I'm going to appease them and maybe there's something in it. Let's just explore the rabbit hole and see what it goes. I will never tell anyone, never, unless I know I won't sleep for a month. Then I'll tell you. It's because something's saying you have to do it. I will never say you need to be careful because right now there's a door that's open or closed. In 2 weeks, it's very likely you can be in a bad situation. So 2 weeks from now, they're driving down the expressway and they're thinking about, what's happening. And oh my God, could that happen today? And they start driving unconsciously and it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. And Keith, the good psychic, everybody now comes to me and gives me all their money because they think I know what's going on. That's a very, very dangerous territory. And I'm sure you have the same sort of kid gloves when you go in there and as a monkey mind specialist.
yeah, as therapists, as hypnotherapists, the father of modern day hypnotherapy was called Milton Erickson, a genius American psychiatrist, and he would say you are using words in a therapy situation which can affect people for the rest of their lives, so you'd better make sure you use the right words. And it's so easy to accidentally implant something that, as you say, a client can subconsciously just pop in the back of their heads in a negative way, and it can come out as a self-fulfilling prophecy at some stage. So,
Because they're coming to you, me, or whoever they're going to for sustenance. So they're ready to take in every freaking nuance of what you're saying because obviously for them, what they have been doing for however long has not been working. So they're soaking teacher, counselor, doctor up like a sponge.
very much so, yeah. And some people, especially within the hypnotherapy framework, some people are naturally very good at hypnosis. There's about 25 to 30% of people are naturally hypnotizable, which means that they are easily hypnotizable. These are people that a stage hypnotist will use very often to do the stupid things on stage. So, and they can be badly damaged in the wrong way. So some people are I don't like the word susceptible. Some people have an ability to go into trance, which is quite remarkable. And especially with that sort of person, we have to be very careful just how we frame our words, our questions, and the words that we use, because the subconscious for those people is very much more open to suggestion.
Let me ask you this, sir. We're slowly but surely coming to the top of the hour. And welcome everyone to Center of Light Radio. Tonight, my guest is Mr. Steve Burgess, and we're speaking about his book. I'm going to post his link at the top of this. Go stomp all over his page. Let him know you exist. I'm sure he would love that. I want to ask you a question, sir. And everyone, thank you for joining Center of Light Radio. I'm coming back. I had to take a break. I've been doing this 10 years, so I took a year break, and slowly but surely, but now I have my next few months booked every Tuesday and Thursday night. Center of Light Radio, centeroflightradio.com, KeithAnthonyBlanchard.com. You can purchase Homecoming Crossing the Bridge to the Soul now, which is available on Amazon. Keith Anthony Blanchard, Homecoming Crossing the Bridge to the Soul. Let me ask you this question, if I may, Steve. What would be something that us common folk would call like, wow, did that really happen? Like something that's just really, and I'm definitely not trying to devalue someone's sacred experience, but for those who are just wanting a cool story, is there something that you can share that would just be so, like you did earlier? Wow. I mean, something that would just be so taken back by that you can share without names, of course.
Yeah. Have you got a couple of hours, Keith?
If you let me play a song break and use the bathroom, I do. But which one really sort of fits the model I'm asking?
Oh, there are so many incredible experiences. I mean, for example, a client who I wrote about in my first book called Famous Past Lives. And she was just an ordinary housewife in England. She was working in an office when a man in the office passed her a file, and they got on very well, her and this man in the office, but they weren't lovers or anything like that. As he passed her a file, their hands touched. Immediately, she got an image in her mind's eye, which she couldn't get rid of a beautiful young woman with long reddish hair in a big long cloak and a gown, very old-fashioned, in an old room, oak paneled room, and she was very frustrated. And she couldn't get this feeling, this image out of her head. It was almost there 24 hours a day. And she called me after a week of this obsessive thing. She said, and she explained, she said, what is it? I was tempted to say, well, you're probably drinking too much vodka. But I said, it could be past life. Come and see me. So she came for the session. I guided her into trance. Her subconscious took her straight into that image, and she was waiting in a past life for her lover to arrive. That was what the frustration was. She was very rich. She had this incredible, expensive dress on, and as her lover came in, this man dressed in this very old-fashioned clothing, they fell into each other's arms, and it was kissy, kissy, huggy, huggy. Now, I thought at that stage, okay, this is just a standard therapy, okay, standard regression. I asked her to move a little bit further in the life, and she saw herself sitting upon a big throne with hundreds of people looking up at her, and a man came over and bowed to her and said, Your Majesty. My ears started to prick up. We opened up the life even more. It appears that she was Queen Elizabeth I, the great queen from English history called the Virgin Queen. And we did a lot more sessions to actually open up the life. And the love affair that she had with Robert Dudley, the Earl of Leicester, which is actually known about, but in the session she put flesh on the love affair, which is, people know about it, but they didn't know that, for example, they've always called Elizabeth the Virgin Queen because she never married. Dudley asked her to marry him, but he was not royalty, so they couldn't marry. So it was always said she was the Virgin Queen. She was married to her country, to the country of England. However, it appears she did have a child, which nobody knows about. And my client went into that in one of the past life sessions and relived the child being taken away from her and hidden and never spoken about. Now, I thought when she regressed into that in the session, I thought, well, she's gone too far here, because we know Elizabeth didn't have a child. But when I researched it, there's a story of a young man in the 1600s who was shipwrecked off the coast of Spain, who went to the Spanish court and claimed to be Elizabeth's child, the love child in her and Robert Dudley. And he was granted asylum in the Spanish court, and they looked after him and treated him as a member of nobility. Very few people know that, and there is no way my client would have known that. She was a housewife who just was experiencing this stuff.
Wow.
So quite extraordinary. And then her elder sister came to me for therapy. Not elder sister in this life, her elder sister in the past life, Queen Mary, appears.
Through her?
No, she just came in. She came several months later, and she regressed back into the life of Mary. So what I did is I thought, this is fascinating. I've now got Queen Elizabeth I, and I've got Queen Mary, Bloody Mary, as we know her in the UK, in therapy. And I said to Queen Mary, I've been treating Queen Elizabeth, your younger sister, 300 years ago. Would you like to meet? And I asked Elizabeth, and they said yes. So I was breaking confidentiality as long as they were okay with that. Now, I got them both to meet up. And what I expected as I was in the room with them was that they would rush into each other's arms and after 300 years express undying love for each other. What actually happened is I introduced them, they moved towards each other, we're going to hug, and then they recoiled from each other and just shook hands. And there was a bad energy between them. And I'd forgotten that in the past life, of course, they hated each other. Mary even imprisoned Elizabeth in the Tower of London for a period, and Elizabeth thought she was going to be executed. So it was a really curious meeting of these two queens 300 years later. Really weird stuff, Keith.
Let me ask you a final question, sir, if I may. So, Dr. Steve Burgess, everyone, he has a book out, a phenomenal book called The Power of Past Life Regression. The link is in here quite a few times. I'm actually going to post it again. Here's a delicious question. I like playing with the mind. So here's a question for you, sir. You and all your rock stardom, you're in the room, right? Are you lucky asking good questions and you hit all the time? Or do you feel like you are truly plugged into the same subconscious mind that you are working with as to why you are being prompted to ask those very questions the mind is wanting you to ask? Do you feel that connection when this happens to you?
Definitely. There are some days, I mean, a couple of things here. One is, as a therapist with a lot of experience, I've got these antennae, and they become very sensitive. After 28 years and 15,000 sessions, they are sensitive. But those antennae connect to my intuition, and that intuition is the seat of the subconscious. The subconscious it holds our intuition. And very often when I'm working with a client and I'm on form and in tune, then I'm not asking the questions. They just come to me and I follow them. So I trust my intuition nowadays more than I ever used to. And you were saying right at the start of the program tonight about developing oneself and developing one's intuition. And I think that's very, very important at the moment, because it's an important way to raise our vibrations as human beings, which we all need to do right now, because of what's happening on Earth with all the stuff that's going on. So yes, my intuition, my subconscious is doing the work very often. I'm just this puppet.
Do you love what you do?
Oh, I'm passionate about it.
That's exactly why you get thrown into the zone. When you love what you do, you're in the zone.
Yeah.
You know,
I just go with it. And I tell you what, Keith, when somebody comes to me with a problem, and when they leave, when we finish the therapy, and they just say to me, "Thank you, you have changed my life, and you have changed my life," and my little lip starts to quiver, and I just say, "Oh, go on, it's okay."
That heart massage becomes very addicting.
Very
when someone validates your presence, not because of the ego stroke, but just the fact, that connection that happens, that lotus flower that blossoms in them, it's the same lotus flower that blossoms in you. And that's why the connection at the end of the quote session happens. It's such a shake hands deal. It's an agreement that we make on levels as to why I came together with you, and the doctor came to me and I came to the doctor, and we're finding this safe haven space inside before I ever release such vulnerability for someone to come in here and intimately massage my mind and my soul and make a serious difference. That's phenomenal, dude. Thank you for joining me on Center of Light Radio. Is there anything you would like to leave our listening audience with? Anything at all about what's coming down the road for you, where you want them to go to see more of you? Whatever. Please offer that now. And a final thought, if you like.
I always like to emphasize listening to my free recordings. I'm passionate about getting hypnotherapy out into the world. So Hypno for All, the YouTube channel, is my way of giving hypnotherapy away. And all the recordings are professionally recorded in my son's studio. So I'm very proud of that site. Obviously the Power of Past Life Regression is now also as an audio book. So we record it as an audio book. I've got a Facebook page, The Power of Past Life Regression. If people want more stories, there's my blog site with podcasts and blogs, hypnoblogpod.wordpress.com, and obviously my website, lionheart-training.com. And I called my training organization Lionheart because I believe as therapists we need to be lion-hearted, which means we have to work and take on a lot of crap day after day. We hear some terrible stories, but we have to keep coming back for more. And I always train my therapists to work open-heartedly. You know, if we work with heart, then there's a good chance that we're going to get people better. If we just work with this, that's not enough. Unfortunately, the main psychological model is working with this. No, work with the heart. And when you work with the heart, that heart connection to that other person, that makes changes and helps the whole process of healing along. So that for me is very important. And finally, therapy sets you free. You know, the world is unbalanced. The more a person releases their emotional baggage, the more balanced they become. And the more balanced a person becomes, the more they're able to live with compassion and kindness and love in the world. And so for me, having therapy is part of rebalancing the earth and helping the earth to people on earth to grow instead of being in the mess that we're in right now.
And there's a formula for heaven on earth becoming a reality, not just a prophecy.
Totally.
Thank you, sir. I really thoroughly enjoyed my time with you. Great energy, great spirit. I was going to ask you why Lionheart, and you said it so poetically. And, you know, lion, pride, be proudful in the right way. Thank you for being a healer and making your contribution to this good earth that belongs to all of us. It's our divine birthright, and thank you.
Thank you, Keith. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank
Blessings.
you so much.
Everyone, Keith Anthony Blanchard, my guest tonight, Mr. Steve Burgess, and we've been speaking about his phenomenal book. It's in this form quite a few times. The Power of Past Life Regression. I don't recall exactly at this moment who I have on Center of Light Radio Thursday night. I think his name is Alfonso, and I think we're going to be speaking about unicorns. I love new possibilities in my life. Let me find my soundbite. My audio, my video is all working really well tonight, so I want to use this to the hilt. Let's see. Hang out with me a second. Play my game with me, please. And here we go. Keith Anthony Blanchard, Center of Light Radio. Always know that you are loved beyond measure. Simply, just way beyond measure. You may not know how to be light-filled. Well, don't worry. You are the light. It's not something you become. If you were not the light, your 98.6 degreesness, you would be invisible. Just be good to yourself.